Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming outside with me today. Today, we're headed to the great state, the terrapin state of Maryland, to talk with Pat about saddle hunting and camouflage from the saddle, shooting an insanely long draw length. And then I definitely am excited to talk about eye dominance today. I get asked about it a lot. I'm left-handed, but I'm right eye dominant, or I'm right eye dominant, left-handed, or left eye dominant, right-handed, and all those ins and outs. I think it's be a really cool conversation today. But before we get to Pat and today's episode, if you want to find yourself on the Average Jack Archery podcast, just an average guy talking about bow hunting, archery, and all the ins and outs of that, please send me an email, averagejackarchery@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, and yes, you can even leave a comment on YouTube. But today, this episode is not about you. It's about Pat. And Pat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nate.
I'm super stoked, man. Well, first of all, I'm going to give away a bit of your background. You're also an elementary school teacher, so it's awesome.
Yes.
And you're an enormous man, bigger than me. You know, I'm 6'4" and change. You're also a large guy, so it's awesome to talk with you. But I'm excited to have you on. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Awesome. Yes. 6'7". That is my height. that makes me a big guy. 275 pounds. That makes me a big guy.
Did you? I didn't ask you off air. Did you do sports like basketball, football, and stuff? I forgot to ask you that off air.
So growing up, I did soccer, and when I got to college, I was a heavyweight boxer at Westchester.
No, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't no basketball, no football,
No. My first college roommate was 6'10", and he was the center.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I did not do basketball growing up. The coach at the high school said, well, we come in and practice at 6 in the morning. I'm like, not this player.
Yeah.
At 6 in the morning, I'm still sleeping.
Right. That's awesome.
I'm still sleeping now as an adult at 6 in the morning.
Yeah, that's also true. Because I get asked all the time, people oh, you're really tall. Did you play basketball? And I'm not gonna lie. I never liked the sport. Like outside of a kid, in elementary school playing. But like once you got to like be able to pick sports, middle school, high school, I couldn't care less about basketball.
I'm not even a big fan of watching organized sports other than watching my son play.
Right.
He had a soccer tournament today, and to watch him play, I'm into that. But to follow, it's not popular to say, but I do not follow the Ravens.
Right. No Lamar Jackson for you?
On a Sunday, I am I'm watching Average Jack Archery on Sunday.
Hey, well, you know what? I'll take it. Because Lamar Jackson's making a lot more money than I am. That's for darn sure. But anyway, speaking of the family and everything, give a little bit of geographic and a little bit of hunting background about you for the folks at home, kind of roughly based where you are there in Maryland, because that, of course, there are certain parts of Maryland that are incredibly rural in terms of how that hunts, and there are certain parts that are incredibly urban and how that hunts. Just kind of give a little bit of that,
Sure.
As well as like how long in general you kind of been hunting, the bow hunting, that sort of stuff.
So I live in Towson, which is a suburb in Baltimore County. That's the most populated county in Maryland, just north of Baltimore City. I work in Baltimore City Public Schools. I hunt on right now on private land. A friend of mine has 26 acres of land, about 15 minutes away. And but then there are 3 public land places within 20 minutes of me.
Oh, really?
Loch Raven, Pretty Boy, and Liberty are pretty big reservoirs. Loch Raven is 10 minutes away. But all 3 of them are bow only. So,
okay, that does make sense though.
Right. I've been hunting. I started with a bow when I was 26, and that came after a student of mine got me into fly fishing. And so it was like, being outside, I did the fly fishing, I did the fly tying, and eventually just kind of sparked the interest of pick up a bow and pick my father's brain about bow hunting, and found a lot of that on my own. So
yes, and so that has now morphed, I'm not. You don't want to give your age away, but you can. You've been hunting for 20 years, in that broad, at least in that spectrum. So you're well seasoned.
I don't mind saying it. I'm 53 years old. I will say that there was a grad class I was taking that I had to introduce myself, and I forgot how old I was and aged myself by a year. And it was my wife later that said, "You're not that old."
Yeah. Well, well, at least you weren't like, I'm 27 and you're just in complete denial. At least, you gave yourself more credit, by being a little bit older. At least that's the story I'm going to go with. But I have to use this to transition because you're a little bit in the well seasoned and definitely in an area of your life in the hunting world where you can just get stuck into a rut. This is how I've always done things, so on and so forth. But in 2014, well before anything in the hunting industry in the past 2 years, especially blew up with saddle hunting, you were already in a saddle, which is something you don't hear a lot of. Outside of like John Eberhard, I don't think I could name a single other person I know that's been hunting out of the saddle earlier than 2016, maybe
Yeah.
2017. Maybe Garrett, Bobby Boswell, Boudreaux Boswell obviously was definitely in it as well. But even guys like Greg Godfrey with Tethered, it was really the past 2 to 3 years. So for the folks at home, what in 2014 pushed you in that direction, and why have you stayed with it? Is kind of my side of the question.
So being on a traditional tree stand, being 6'7", the pain in my back and the pain in my butt, um, not being able, and then if a deer does come in and I try to stand up at 6'7", I don't feel that easy on a tree stand. Always feeling like I'm going to fall off. And then there was the whole, if I do fall with a traditional harness, there's this suspension trauma I need to worry about. If I do fall, I only have a certain amount of time to get up out of that back to the tree stand, or I'm a dead man hanging in a tree. So I had seen, I don't know where I saw it, but I had seen, it was probably an older video on YouTube, um, of a tree saddle, and it was the early arrow hunter that it was a video that I stumbled onto with Bobby Boswell, and so that directed me to New Tribe. And once I tried the Evolution, when that came out, there was no turning back. Like within that day, I was ready to, after I put it on, it was hanging at a tree. I was ready to get rid of all my tree stands and go into it whole hog. When I saw him hanging upside down, I was like, okay, that is safe. Like if he's not, and he was bouncing upside down on that, in that arrow hunter, and he was not falling out of it. And I was like, I drank the Kool-Aid and all the way. Yes, you got
What
me into saddle hunting.
what were you using as a platform back then? Because things like the
Yeah.
Predator and Out on a Limb and that sort of stuff wasn't around. So what were you using? A lot of guys were probably using the Ring of Steps, I imagine, that sort of thing. So what were you using as a platform? Because also you don't have small feet being 6'7". So it's not like, the Predator XL, if you will, or the big trophy line that's come out, or even like, I guess in the olden days, like the Lone Wolf Assassin platform, which was like a mini tree stand
Hmm.
base to it, almost like the size of like their current assault or something like that. What were you using back then?
So, and I still have three of these. Gorilla came out with a tree seat that would flip up and would ratchet around the tree. And I have three of those. One is Gorilla, and I have two from an older brand. I think it was like River's Edge or something. And they're made out of steel. And on the on the private land that I use, I leave those up in the tree the whole season, and I will climb up to those, and I'll stand. The platform is only, I don't know, 10 inches by 4 or 5 inches. And that is what I would stand on. I've tried the Ring of Steps. I have those, do not like them. I bought the Predator platform recently for when I'm on public land.
Okay.
And I do like, the side pressure. Most of the time I'm like leaning off the side, not so much on the platform, but
Okay. Yeah, so that gorilla, I imagine, is similar. You've probably seen it as well. Like Hawk has the tree seat, and it's meant to be used like a bucket seat. You're meant to sit at ground level. That was the whole point of that gorilla's tree seat,
right,
I imagine.
right.
And you're just utilizing it as something, 15, 20 foot in the air that you're standing on instead.
Of course, everything that that started out was like with tree saddles was the sit drag. That wasn't meant to be up in a tree, and
No, it
everyone
was
uses
not.
it.
And I sat in it, and I'll tell you what, though, I was incredibly comfortable in mine. Even being a bigger dude, I had incredible comfort in the sit drag. And I thought to myself, if I can be comfortable in this thing, imagine what like an actual, like real legitimate manufactured saddle would feel like. And it was exactly what I envisioned. It's cool. I like talking to folks, like I love talking to Garrett Paul and watching Garrett Paul's old stuff. When he also was kind of one of the first like big faces on YouTube in particular that had a good
Mhm.
following, that was dabbling in the saddle and the ultra lightweight stuff and platforms and everything. And I love talking because like there was nothing manufactured at the time. John Eberhart was kind of doing his own thing and and,
Mhm.
and how he created it. So everything was DIY. Everything was completely at your own risk, all that sort of stuff. And that's I know when I started doing it with the sit drag and stuff, I was sitting there thinking I like the modularity, the mobility, and the comfort, in particular, when it comes to the butt and the back when it comes to a
Mhm.
tree stand platform. I would rather put those things over my own personal health and safety when it comes to this DIY thing. Was that something that you also kind of weighed in your head and you were like, yeah, I'm going to take all of these things over the fact that I'm using equipment that is not meant to be used for this purpose?
When I got into the saddle hunting, it was meant for that purpose. So I never used anything like this
Well, I
sit
mean,
drag.
like your seat, like for example, your tree stand, your platforms were meant
Yeah.
to be, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
three, four
Yeah.
feet
It's
off the
comfort.
ground.
It,
Yeah,
it's it's comfort, and it's what there's nothing made out there for a guy like me. I mean, for someone of my size with my size 17 shoes, like my whole foot is not fitting on something unless I'm going to put the bottom platform of a climber, and I don't want to take that much weight in with me. But no, it's all about comfort and what my body, if it can support my body up there. And for the most part, the platform is not supporting my weight. Like,
that's
not the
correct.
saddle is taking the saddle and the ropes are taking the weight,
I get
majority of
asked
the weight.
this a lot. I don't know how you are with your hunting community. If you get a lot of people that are still tree stand guys, they look at you in a saddle, they're like, I don't understand that. I get asked a lot, like, well, like they would like, well, I don't see how you can do that. You're standing the whole time. I don't know of what the weight distribution would be. I have to imagine that 70 to 80% is in my backside when I'm
Oh
leaning.
yeah.
It has to be. I feel nothing almost on my feet. I could lean away from the tree almost all day. I basically just move into the tree to sit just for a change of pace
Yeah.
and I get the jitters. I got to move.
I am, most of the time I'm a leaner. I'm leaning back away from the tree, and very seldom do I come in because I don't like putting my knees up on the tree. But and I for as much as I don't like putting my knees on the tree, I don't like wearing knee pads that much more. So that really causes me to be a leaner. That being said, when like I have the back band that I'll put underneath my armpits and for the upper back, but if I feel like I want to sit, I will take that back band and pull it down under my butt into my thighs, and it's almost like I'm sitting on a kid's swing in a playground.
That's
Like
right.
it's not the stiff board, but it really gives me just a little extra support underneath there, just to help alleviate if I do have any back pain in the tree saddle. And I'm not saying that I don't ever get back pain in the tree saddle, because being 6'7", I'm just not meant to be up in a tree.
No, we
But
are not.
no, I mean, if you really think about it, I am the tree. I mean,
Well,
the
okay,
deer come
and
out, I am the tree.
this is the perfect segue too, because this is something that I've written down and we talked about a little off air. And I put in the outline. We are the tree. We are like this enormous branch
Yeah.
system coming off the side of the tree. When it comes to camouflaging us in a tree, this is something I get asked a bunch. Don't you stick out like a sore thumb 20 times worse than you ever did when at least with a climber or a hang on, you could get up into the tree a little bit. Do you find, I got to ask you this before we get to the whole
Yeah.
camouflage thing, like actual physical clothing. Do you ever find yourself, because I had a discussion with this with a gentleman a few weeks ago, he steps up, like he'll pull up on his bridge and get up to the tree and like hug, like get as parallel to the tree as possible. Do you ever do that to hide, or are you staying on the opposite side of the tree from the deer instead?
For the most part, I'm on the opposite side of the tree. And yes, I'm hiding behind the tree. There are times that I have done the maneuver where I turn around and have the line go up across my chest, pinning my body between the rope and the bridge and the tree. And then I can actually like lean out a little to take a shot that's directly behind me, because I'm not too great on those drop shots.
Okay.
But yes, I've done it all with those, but I've for the most part I'm leaning and I'm using the tree as cover.
Right, because we talked a little bit about this off air. You don't get super wound about camouflage, like camouflage clothing, if you will, in the tree. You would much rather play hide and seek, if you will, with the
Yes.
deer. See it, adjust yourself to be on the opposite side. If the deer's at noon, you put yourself at 6 o'clock, and if it moves to 1, you go to 7. If it moves
Yeah.
to 11, you go to 5. And is that something that you just kind of like, I just don't care what clothes they wear because again, if you can find camo that actually fits you type thing, or was it just like that just makes more logical sense? To me, it makes more logical sense just to put the tree between you and the deer.
Right. Like you've hit 2 points there. That one, I can't always find camouflage that fits me. You know, I do have a few pieces, and I try to when I buy something, I try to buy some oversized. Um, and already being a 3XL, there's not too many things that are oversized for me. But I do. That's a
Great.
good
That's
one.
awesome. That's awesome. It's just like, yeah, I'm 3X. It's really hard to be oversized.
But so I try to use that as like an similar to what you did with the leafy suit jacket. Like I wear whatever I'm going to wear when it gets colder, and put something that I have over it that's camouflage, because I can't find the big camouflage wintertime jacket that's going to fit me. Now that being said, in the tree stand, I mean in the saddle up in the tree, I just prefer to use the tree as cover and wear muted colors along the way. So I'm wearing my tan colored Carhartts on my legs. And you had said off camera about wearing your muck boots.
Right.
I
To get
don't,
the extra length.
right. So I don't have that option. Like they don't have those big enough for me. And
Right.
so I have to, I find something like the Carhartts have the length for me. And I wear a pair of high-tech leather hiking boots, and those are my hunting boots for like in the warm and the cool seasons.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
what are you wearing for a winter boot though? Because I mean, you're in Maryland. It's not like super cold, but you're definitely dealing with some 30-degree temperatures in the hunting season.
So I found, I have no idea where I found this, but it was Columbia had made a pair of size 17, and it had some camouflage on it in like a 10-inch boot, insulated boot, with that shiny material on the inside for insulation or
Right.
whatever.
Right. Right.
And so I found those, um, but I wear those high-tech leather boots until my toes start getting numb, and then I throw those others on. It's just, because those other ones I just don't have the maneuverability, because they're a much bigger boot,
Oh,
and
they're
I'm already
huge.
right, and I already have the huge foot inside the boot, and so I'm not really all that maneuverable on a platform. But the tree saddle allows the maneuverability per se.
Right. And this is something I also wanted to ask you about when it came to the saddle, because it'll tie into the next topic I want to talk about when it comes to draw length. But for me, I fought for years with the stinking tether, the
Yeah.
standard 4-part tether that comes out of the back between your shoulder blades on a standard tree stand harness. I would fight with that thing, and then I'd be, backed. I'd be sitting, and I had to shoot straight in front of me. My elbow would hit the tree. I remember shooting a deer one time, and I shot, and under the tension, my funny bone cracked the tree behind me. It hurt like son of a gun. And so I fought, and so going to a saddle just was able to put me away from the tree. I didn't have to fight
Yeah.
with that tether behind my back. Was that something, just on a personal note, was that something you experienced as well as fighting with that tether because of your insanely long draw length?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like being, I'd always be right up against the tree, or like I hit a branch. I get up there positioned and sitting. I don't necessarily think about the branch that's up above me, and then or I see it there, but that's not going to affect me. And then I stand up, and it does affect me. And but the strap coming out of the back definitely was a big hindrance. And once getting in the saddle, to say goodbye to that was a godsend.
It literally was the biggest silver lining to switching to saddles. I had no idea how much I really truly, I knew I never liked it. I knew I always fought with it. I always had to think about which way I was. There'd be times where I'd be standing there in the stand, and I would deliberately put my arm up and around over the tether behind me to grab it if the shot was on my weak side, for example, instead of going up underneath it. So I'd have to fight it. That kind of stuff you just shouldn't have to fight with in a tree stand. And I did not realize how much I hated that thing and how much it was in my way on a normal basis until I moved to saddle hunting.
How about having that strap come up your back, and then you want to put a coat on with a hood or something? The hood you can't do, or you have the hood on and the strap is coming out by your ear, and you have to be a contortionist to do everything, and the saddle takes care of all of that.
There's been a lot of people that have, quote, heard deer when it's really just that seatbelt material, that strap rubbing on the inside of their hood. A lot of those. But anyhow, let's transition to the next topic I want to hit to here. I alluded to it already. Long draw. You're a 32-inch draw.
Correct.
And this is something that I don't want to talk about our insanely long. Your insanely long draw length. I'm in the 31-inch land as well. And how we get to cheat with heavy arrows. That's always fun. We talked about that very briefly off air. We're 500 grains without even trying,
Absolutely.
that type of stuff. That's not what I want to talk about, because we're cheating in that regard. I want to talk about how buying the bow that fits you because it fits you, and that's what works for you, and that's what fits your budget and that sort of stuff. So being a 32-inch draw length, that severely limits, even me being a 31-inch draw, and for a lot of manufacturers, it severely limits a lot of the things that are available to you. So you knew, and I want you to kind of tell this story a little bit about the two bows that you currently own. You put the cart before the horse in terms of what you had to purchase. So explain this for the folks at home, because no one understands big guy problems better than you do here.
So I didn't, I knew there weren't a lot of bows, and I did my research online looking for what bows are out there that have the 32-inch draw length. And knowing that I'm not in I'm a teacher, so I'm not buying an $1,100 bow. I can't do the flagship bows when they're new. I need them when they're used. So I knew that Matthews had the Switchback LD. And I said to myself, if I ever had the opportunity to buy one, if I ever found one that came up, I would snatch it. But I also knew they were cam specific. So I came across the 32-inch cam for the Switchback LD first. So I bought that, and I had that for at least a year before I found the Switchback. And for a price that I wanted to pay. I still didn't want to pay, $800 for it, but I found it for about $250. And so then, I put a new set of strings on, and I have a Switchback LD in a 32. That being said, I always said I would love to have a Z9, even though it was shorter axle to axle. it bumped up the speed a little bit, especially with pulling a 32-inch draw length. Same thing. I came across the Z9 cam in the 32-inch first, and then over a year later came into the bow. So yes, I put the cams first and then came across the bows later.
which
But
is awesome. Like, well, and then granted also too, like it's like that was a very specific era for Matthews in the late 2009, 2010, 2011 time frame when their bows were cam specific.
yes,
Now of course all their bows are module specific, but that wasn't too uncommon for a lot of module specific, cam specific things to be going on. Uh, and you were buying equipment, at least at the time, that wasn't brand spanking new. Sure, you were
no,
buying stuff that fits you, and those bows are not speed demons, and those bows in terms of their technology quote are outdated by today's standards. Those, I love those bows. I love working on those bows when they come into the shop. Those things are sweet shooters, and I tell that to everybody when they're like, should I buy this used bow? It's like 7, 8, 9 years old. Particularly it's the Matthews. I love the Matthews that era. They're just fantastic. They kill everything you shoot at least.
oh yeah, I had was on an email with Troy Fowler, and yes, I bought the test kit, and I bought both of them from Ethics. So I have the 100 to 300,
Right.
and so I dabble in that, but that's a different topic. But like he'd asked me about my bow, and I told him I was a switchback LD. He said, "Stay with it. Like that's still, it kills it. Like I love the forgiveness of it, and it being a little bit longer axle to axle, it just fits me perfectly." Now, like I said, I would, if I came into a lot of money, I would love to go out and just take a test drive on a what was it, the Matthews, I'm drawing a blank, help me
Probably
out.
the Traverse or
Traverse,
yeah.
the Traverse, because they only have one. There's always, no matter who you go to, if you're looking for a hunting bow, you're only going to find one that allows a 32-inch draw length.
Oh yeah, yeah. The backs, most of them go like, it's actually becoming more and more commonplace for them to only go to like 30 to 30 and a half. And now I'm starting to kind of like, kind of worry a little bit because I'm in 31 land, and that used to be a safe place to be. And
Yeah,
actually, I remember vividly, like in the late 2010, maybe early 2010 range, bows. I think Bear was making bows out to 33 inches
wow,
just on the norm. Like that was part of their
yeah.
flagship thing. And now it's kind of gone down to 32 is the max, 31 and a half is the max, 31. And some are only going to the 30, 30 and a half. And I feel a little bit slighted as one of the big guys in the industry. And you're, of course, one of the bigger people in the industry there. But
PSE had a bow out called the Freak. I was
yes,
like, okay, and that went out. I know it was over what I would draw at, but it was a flagship bow, and I was like, I can't buy that. I can't put that kind of money. My wife would kill me if I put $1,100 down on a bow.
yeah,
And like there's all these bows I would love to test, but I was like, I love the Cure. Like looking at all the reviews, I love the Cure, but I know I'm not gonna. There's nothing I can do. 32-inch draw, like I guess the only way I could do that is if I have like a 3 or 4 inch, like if I have a really long D loop.
right, right. The only guy that I've seen, and it's really good. Anytime anybody tries, I see on Facebook or something, and I try to stay off social media if I can, which is funny because my entire YouTube and everything revolves around social media. But anytime anybody's like, they post a picture in a group, it's like it's a form check, and like 57 people will comment things that they're doing wrong. I
Yeah.
always want to comment a picture of Tim Gillingham because Tim Gillingham has been doing things wrong for 40 years. He anchors to like the front of his lips. He has like a 3.5-inch D loop. He touches just the tip of his finger. He's a command shooter, so he makes the bow go off when he wants it to go off. There's so many things that Tim does, quote, wrong. And oh, yeah, that's right. Tim has won probably more money at archery shoots than I will make being a teacher for the next 30 years. So, I the the interesting thing is that you can make a lot of things work, although it's better to not. make
Yeah.
them work and just have them be the way they are supposed to work instead of making them. And it's a shame about the Cure because it'll go to 30 and a half with the way the modules work with the let off and everything. But I still at that 31 inch, I just feel just a touch short.
Hmm.
So I still play with D loop length and stuff, but I really do wish, because I love the result, because it goes out to 31 and a half, and I can play with that and find that perfect feel and fit for me. And I do wish more bow companies, although the big guys are we're not a dying breed by any means, but we're definitely a small, very small part of the industry.
It's kind of funny that that you say that, and that your channel is Average Jack Archery, because to a certain extent, we're not average.
No, that's true. We are
We're in the higher
definitely
end of
the
average.
higher end of a lot of average numbers. I have a watermelon for a skull, and and my inseam is definitely over 34 inches. But anyway, let's also talk about things that are also a little bit weird
Okay.
about us and how it operates. I want to talk about eye dominance. We talked a little
Hmm.
bit about this off air. This is something that I get asked questions about a lot. And for anybody who hasn't heard this story before, I'm left-handed everything. I'm left, I throw, eat, kick a ball. I'm left ear dominant, like I hear better, all that sort of stuff. But I am right eye dominant when I was a kid. I just straight up was right eye dominant. And my grandfather said two things. One, you should follow your dominant eye. But secondly, if you can shoot things right-handed, particularly in archery, it's just like playing a right-handed guitar. When you go to buy another one or sell this one, it's gonna be a lot easier to sell than a left-handed guitar. Same thing's true with a left-handed bow. So if you can learn to follow your dominant eye and learn to shoot a bow right-handed, you'll be a lot better off throughout the years. And he was very right when he said that. But I get a lot of people that ask me, hey, I'm right-handed, but I'm left eye dominant. What the heck do I do? And I
Yeah.
tell people, follow your handedness. In 2020, I tell people to follow your handedness because, if you pick up a bow and you go buy left-handed and you don't even know if you like archery, now you're stuck with left-handed gear. And that can be a real tricky thing in today's world of resale. And, if you can get your money's worth out of it. And I feel bad for those folks. And also, if you're brand new and you're already right-handed, usually this is stronger over here on
Yep.
that right side. Just makes life a little bit simpler. Now, when it comes to you, though, it wasn't a strength issue. It was a straight up, we're missing the target issue. We either got to we got to switch
Boy,
hands.
that's embarrassing.
Well, I mean, no, you were a kid. You had no
No.
idea. But like, you either have to train to do the opposite dominance or go to that non-dominant physical side when it comes to your left side. So unpack that a little bit for the folks at home.
So I didn't start shooting until I was 26, and my father took me out to a bow range, and he had bought a bow in a yard sale for me. It was an old bow. It was a wood bow with idler wheels on both the top and bottom, and the string was like a steel cable, a coated steel cable. And so we got out to the bow range, and no one else was there. And we had 3 arrows with us, and I pulled back on my right side. I'm right side dominant, but I'm right-handed, left eye dominant. And at that time, I didn't know I was left eye dominant. So I pulled back on the right side, but I'm looking at, obviously, I'm not looking down the string, but I'm looking at the target with my left eye, or that's the side that took control. And when I released, I missed the target completely. And my father was like, well, that's just beginner. We'll try again. And 3 arrows later, and we're searching for 3 arrows in the grass because I missed completely. And then that was when he said, what eye are you aiming out of? And I was like, well, my left eye, that's what just comes natural. And he said, yeah, if you're going to shoot right-handed, you need to train yourself to aim with your right eye. And so early on, I would wear a patch on my left eye, and just to start training myself to shoot with my right eye, aiming with my right eye. And now when I shoot, my left, like I'm still left eye dominant. If I did the test, bringing your hands back, it still comes to my left eye. And with the gun, I'm still mainly shooting left-handed. I mean, yeah, for my left eye dominant. but for my bow, the first bow I bought, and I went into a shop, and I told them I'm left eye dominant, and they said, we don't even have left-handed bows. We'd have to order one for you. And I mean, so it was about almost 30 years ago. And so it was his recommendation that I, especially if my stronger arm is my right arm, was to buy on and shoot right-handed. So yes, I trained myself to shoot right eye dominant, and but I don't close the eye. I don't wear a patch at all. I just, when I pull that bow back and that string is there, and I don't use a peep sight.
That
Like
was my next question. I wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
At 53, I can't, my eyes have started to fade. I cannot see through a peep sight. I use the Bomar nose button and anchor points. And I just make sure I'm at a consistent anchor point, and I still, at 20 yards, have no problem hitting a 50-cent piece. So, but yes, and early on, my father's, like, his advice to me was we cranked the sights, these old metal sights that would screw, over to the left side, and they're sitting over, I swear it looked like 6 inches over, just to get in line with my left eye. But still, I was like, oh, that was just nuts, the things we did early on. But yes, I digress. I stay with a right-handed and right eye, even though I'm left eye dominant. Just trained myself to use my right eye to focus.
Are you using the string at all? Like recurve archers, like Olympic recurve archers don't use a peep. They use the string for a string blur, and then they'll look at the ring and their pin down at their riser. Are you doing that, or is it all anchor points? All anchor points with the nose button, that sort of stuff? And
anchor points, and then I look at, I anchor in, and with the nose button or whatever. I mean, it used to be just the string on my nose, but I look at the pin, and then I focus on the target. I'm not focusing on that pin, I'm focusing on the target, and then execute my shot.
That's awesome. That is something that has come out a lot recently. So how long have you been shooting without a peep, though?
15, 20 years.
Oh, it's been quite a while.
Yeah, like I had the old peep that had the tube.
Oh yeah,
on it, the stretch tube. I had that on, and when I got rid of that and went to all these the newer type peeps, I didn't have a bow shop close here anymore, so I would have to learn to do these things myself, and at a certain point, like I would just keep going to a bigger peep and bigger peep, and when you're already at a 1/4 inch peep and you're still having trouble seeing your sights, I was like, you know what, there just has to be a better way. And like I started thinking, it was like, well, when my dad was hunting, when he was, my age or a lot younger, he wasn't using a peep, and they just went to anchors. And so I was like, okay, no peep. We went with no peep. As a matter of fact, I had gone, when I got rid of it, I had a product, you might remember this. It was a Timberline no peep, and it was the basis for what the IQ sights are.
Oh, it's the crosshairs on the backside of the riser.
Right. So there's been several products like this, but it would sit down by the shelf, or near the shelf, and there was a ring in the front and a dot in the back, and you line those up, and if you knew then that you had your good anchor. If you had your consistent anchor, you weren't going to be torquing it. It was a great thing for torque, bow torque. But I used that, and after I got that, and used that as more of a training device, that eventually I took that off and sold that to somebody else, and just kept with consistent anchors.
That's awesome. I think probably the biggest right now, like that we've seen, is Jared Schaefer from Flinging Arrows or Appalachian Archery. He started using the nose button. What were you? I have to ask, before the nose button, were you using anything in lieu of the nose button, or was it just nose touching the string?
Nose touching the string,
Okay.
like knuckles at my jawline, and nose touching the string, and that was it.
He rides his Bowbar nose button way off to the side, like almost up his nostril. Do you do that, or is it really out far
It's
towards the tip?
it's kind of like right in the tip.
Right in the
Like,
tip of
I
the
don't
nose.
want it when I pull back. I try to adjust it so that I'm not having to move my head to the button. I want to pull back, and I want that button within a 16th of an inch. Like if I have to just move a 16th of an inch to feel it, fine. But if I have to search all over for it, or if I have to tilt my head down, I don't want that.
I got one with Bullhunter Box Club, and I played around with it a little bit. It's freaking sharp. And I
Yes.
found I took a little bit of sand off of mine and kind of they're making one for a recurve. Brady Ellison just used it at USA Nationals, Outdoor Nationals here several weeks ago. And they made it more like almost like a kisser, but a little more rubbery. Did you
Mhm.
find that you kind of had to take a little bit of point off, or do you like it that spiky?
I haven't had it on that long, but I will. Like I haven't used it for hunting, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to either take a lighter to it, or to ease the edge down, or take some sandpaper down, because it is kind of spiky. It's kind of a
Yeah.
shock. But on the other hand, I know it. Like when I pull it back, it's like, yep, you're there.
Right. Yeah, I
So
took some super fine grit, like 1,000 grit, like
yeah,
drywall sandpaper to it.
okay.
Just took a little edge off. Not like I didn't take 60 grit to it and round it smooth.
What's the
I,
point of it then?
what's the point of it then at that point? That's cool. I I have to ask then though, when it comes to the pins and like how you're shooting, like what is your effective range just for practice? Forget the actual
Mhm.
ethicalness in the woods. What is your effective range that you will shoot them without a peep and just using the anchors and that sort of stuff?
So in my backyard right here, I'm at a 20-yard range. If I go over to the gun club that has some targets, I'll go out to 30. But for the most part, since I'm not hunting past 30, I don't shoot something past 30. I'm not comfortable with that. And there's a story with that that I don't. I usually try to keep them to within 30. So I'm usually practicing right there, and I don't want to shoot 40 or 50 or whatever, because with my eyes at that distance, it becomes a big blur.
Right. Well, and I will say too, like I get a little bit salty when people are like, "Well, I was out tuning broadheads today to 70 yards," and I'm like, "What? What were you doing? You're never gonna. Why?" I practice everything from 0 to 35. I'll do some 40 just for fun, just for kicks and giggles, so that I can in my backyard. But I've taken one shot at an animal over 30 yards, and it was like the perfect scenario, the perfect situation to make it work. Actually, I take it back. I did have a shot at an animal at 40 yards, and it went horribly wrong. Everything went wrong because she moved. It was not a good
Yeah.
situation. Everything, and I vowed I would never do that again because everybody talks about how the gold standard is 40 yards. 40
So
yards to me is a mile, and you probably have a bunch of stories about it.
So I have the deer that's the only deer I had mounted up here above my house. Show you a little later. Is it was on the PSE Nova. It was early in my hunting career, and it was about 40 yards. And I aimed for the front shoulder. And by the time the arrow got there, I mean, we're not talking high speed bows. By the time the arrow got there, it hit it in its back hip. And so it went down, and when I came upon it an hour or so later, it picked its head up and looked at me like, "What do you want?" And so I went back to the truck and had some coffee, had a sandwich, and waited another 2 hours and went back, and it had expired.
Mm.
But after that, I was like, never again am I taking that long of a shot. But
Yeah, every time I shoot at 40 yards, I just think about how long that arrow takes. Like a deer has an opportunity to make a sandwich, drink a cup of coffee of its own, and then still duck the arrow, and then it gets there. Like it's and you know and we are not sure we're not shooting the fastest bows in the market. We're shooting over IBO specs,
yeah.
60 pounds, 70 pounds, over 30 inches in that regard. we're not shooting like 220 feet a second here. And just the amount of movement that those critters can have at those distances is something I take very seriously. And I'm glad that you say that you're really like, yeah, 20 and 30. Like, and I think that's what people should really focus on. I
Yeah.
really do. I think the success rate of a lot of people would just skyrocket if they stopped worried about, well, I got to go out and shoot at 40 and 50 and make sure I'm on at 60. And then I got a bare shaft tune out to 70 and all that crap. Just you're shooting at 20, 30 yards. And if you hunt in any state that has any sort of contiguous timber like we do,
Hmm.
in the Northeast, most of a good chunk of the Midwest, a 40-yard shot is a bomb. It is an absolute bomb. And I think if a lot of people took 20 and 30 more seriously, I think we'd have a lot more successful hunters and a lot less wounded deer. Well, Pat, I can't thank you enough, bud, for coming on to the podcast today. Any social media for the folks at home that they could follow?
So I like saddlehunter.com, and it's my last name it's Vorsteg, Vorsteg, at the saddlehunter.com website.
And they could just go and pick your brain of the past,
Sure.
6 years of saddle hunting.
We can have a continuation of the average Jack archery there.
There you go. Yeah. Hi, I have a 37-inch draw length. Well, you've talked to the right guy. That would be great. Well, I can't thank you enough, bud, for coming on the podcast. If you kill anything, I want a picture of it.
Absolutely.
I need all
I
the
appreciate
pictures. Yeah, man. I want them. I'll be very excited to get them. And I just love communicate with other folks just like us, just like me, the average guys out hunting. It's been a blast. So I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Folks, again, if you want to be just like Pat and find yourself on an episode of the Average Jack Archery podcast, once again, do send me an email, averagejackarchery@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, and of course, you can always leave a comment on YouTube. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.